The way that we will structure the session, and that we will do our best to open the floor so everyone who is here, not in the speakers list, will be able to speak. As you know, we are doing this session together with UNFPA, with UNDSA, and with the United Nations major group for children and youth. And this is meaningful for the Global Task Force and for UCLG because of the milestones that we have for 2024. We come from the UN SDG Summit in September with the rescue plan, where we presented 12 coalitions to localize this SDG's rescue plan, and we are going towards the Summit of the Future. The idea for here is to build partnerships towards this process, to put into the table the different mechanisms that we have. We have particularly from our constituency the advisory group to the Secretary General on local and regional governments. We're open to partner with other processes and to start identifying and building the links between them. We will have as well, as every year in the intergovernmental processes, particularly the HLPF and ideally the UN General Assembly, the Local and Regional Governments Forum, which is led by UNDSA. So this is a crucial space that we will try to open as well as every year, but a bit more to partners and to other stakeholders. You know, the spirit of UCLG and the Global Task Force whenever we are in the United Nations is that the UN should listen to cities. And this is what our constituency always say. But we also try to guarantee that cities are listening, because we go with the power of saying that we should listen to cities because cities are listening as well. So in the Local and Regional Governments Forum, we are trying to build spaces for this type of partnerships. As you know, this year, the International Conference on Population and Development will be reviewed, and this process is called the ICPD 30. UCLG signed a memorandum of understanding with UNFPA, and we will be dedicating a global dialogue with local and regional leaders during the HLPF on this agenda, and it's one of our top priorities. And finally, the SDGs that are under review. I will not go deeper on what we will be doing. I would like to ask Mayor Howards, who is the mayor of Mount Vernon, to give us a keynote opening for this. As you know, she is a mayor. She is the president of the African American Mayors Association as well. She is a member of NLC. She's a member of the UN's Conference of Cities, and she's an OCD champion mayor, and she is representing our whole constituency during this partnerships forum. So, Mayor, the floor is yours to open the discussion, and welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much. As has been stated, my name is Sean Patterson Howard, Mayor of the City of Mount Vernon, and I'm just delighted to be here today to speak about the importance of partnerships. Here at the United Nations, we're oftentimes speaking about the importance of partnerships that we're doing globally and within our nation. But as a mayor who is leading at the most granular level of government and who is tasked with ensuring that international and national and state policies are implemented on a local level where they can truly meet the people, and that we have the proper amount of boots on the grounds and resources that are dedicated to this work, I'm honored to be here. As it's been stated, I'm a member of many national organizations, but it is the local work and it is our local partners that truly help us get impact to the people in the community we serve, whether it's working with United Way, faith-based organizations, fraternities and sororities, community groups, youth groups, our public health organizations, our economic development organizations. This is where the work is getting done. As we heard this morning in the opening plenary, it spoke about the fact that we're not moving forward with the type of urgency that is needed. And the only way that that can truly happen is if we bring this work to a city level. And that's why I'm so excited to be partnered with UCLG as they continue to push the campaign, Listen to Cities. Oftentimes around our world, and I know in my country right now, the national level of government feels quite broken. And we feel that we now have to look at a subnational level, really to get things done. And that is what we are doing. We're not sitting and waiting for national direction any longer. Mayors and cities are partnering with hundreds of local agencies within their community, within their region, across the country. And now I'm so excited across the globe. When we look at some of our national challenges and some of our local challenges, I find that as I travel to Barcelona or to speak with people in the Gambia or throughout Australia and different parts of Europe and Africa, that I'm finding more synergy with the issues and around infrastructure, around migration, around youth, working with our older adult population, dealing with climate change and economic development and issues of affordability. These are issues that we're dealing with in all of our communities at all levels, and government cannot do it alone. And you know, I was saying earlier, I'm excited to see that there are more people who are coming from a civil society level, who are moving into government. And it's not just your lifetime politicians who are taking office, because we come to these seats with a different understanding. I'm a social worker. I've been a social worker and worked in human services for 35 years. And so I come to this work with the understanding of the urgency of what needs to be done. Understanding that if we're not intentional and we're not strategic in defining the work that needs to be done, then we will continually slide backwards and we will never move forward together. We have to lift our voices collectively. And I know oftentimes as we sit, we feel insufficient. We never have enough resources. We never have enough time. And we never feel like we have enough partners. But we're not doing this work individually. It is a collective work. And as we understand the importance of moving forward together, then we can absolutely reach our SDGs. And it's going to take those of us who are sitting around the table at this levels to do it. We have to be unapologetic. We have to be committed. We have to be focused. And we have to be innovative in ensuring that we don't just have partnership with government, but we have partnerships with all of the stakeholders. Like I said, business, faith, government, civil society. And we must make sure that we have space at the table for our young people. Our young people do not want to be set at the outside table. Their voices are critically important to the work that we're doing. And we also have to make sure that we reach back and we don't forget our aging population. I call them our seasoned citizens, because they have the knowledge, they have the passion. The Bible often says they called the old because they were wise, but they called the young because they were strong. And so if we do this work intergenerationally and through multidisciplinary actions, then we can achieve more. And so I look forward to learning more, to growing more in this international space, and to growing the partnerships so that we can accomplish what we have not seen accomplished just at sometimes the highest levels of power. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And this is what we understand by high impact localization, which is a whole of the society approach. It's not claiming to the UN to listen to cities, but to listen to the people. And cities are one of the instruments to guarantee this. So thank you. Yes, Mayor, of course.
And I just meant to say this. I always say no one owns the work. We all own the work. And that's very, very important, that we all take ownership of this work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And yes, trying to guarantee this, and it is the summit of the future, the time that we will have to imagine that multilateral system that is fit for this purpose. Thank you, Mayor. I will now go, and I would like to introduce you to Nayara Costa. She is the Senior Sustainable Development Officer of UNDSA. And I don't want to go really personal, but she is one of the reasons that local and regional governments have a different space in the HLPF and in many of our processes. So, Nayara, what's the future of our partnerships? And thank you very much for joining. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Pablo. And good afternoon, colleagues. I see several good friends around, and it's great to be with you. and I hope we will have a good time to have a chat as well. And Pablo, and let me just start by thanking UCLG, the Global Task Force, UNFPA, and Children and Youth Makers for this invitation, for having us today with you. I was asked to make, we are today reflecting on partnerships. I was asked to reflect a little bit about the partnership that we at UNDSA have been developing with local regional governments, and most specifically in, as Pablo was mentioning, is carving and creating and nurturing space inside the UN for voices from the local and regional level to be here, to be visible, and to have kind of in a regular fashion as well. And I have to say that I'm talking most specifically about the Local and Regional Governments Forum, which collaborates together with the Global Task Force, UN Habitat, UNDP, and Local 2030. It was the very first Local and Regional Government Forum happened in 2018, and it was the very first event that I had to support when I joined UNDSA. So it was also, a very good memory when we did. And since then, we had 7 editions, including 2 during the SDG Summit in 2019 and the SDG Action Weekend last year. And I was thinking, what are some of the key messages that they are with me, or that I have been bringing from this process? And maybe I have just 4 points I wanted to say that, I think this process, the creating this dedicated space, it just reinforces how the SDGs are both global and local. And UCLG, you have this studies and analysis that show that 65% of the SDG targets are linked to the work of the local and regional governments. So if we don't focus locally, we won't be able to implement the SDGs at all. The second point I want to say is just because because they are all localized, the targets, we really need the leadership from local and regional governments. It is indispensable, and that's why there is this effort to have their voices, their presence at the local and at the global level as well. And we will be working with you to create this. Because the local and regional governments, they are closer to the communities. They are the ones who can address the priorities, and they are the ones that face the main challenges first, right? When the crisis comes, when the pandemic hit, it's at the local government that citizens will go for support. And then number 3, because you are so close to the communities, local and regional governments, they also have this responsibility of making the implementation and follow-up of the SDGs an inclusive and meaningful process. And this is something I would say throughout the years, the Local and Regional Governments Forum, the space at the HLPF, we have been trying to make it more diverse and also bringing out the stakeholders and their voices and their experiences and their message for local and regional governments. Because we learn from the lessons that are coming from the local level. And this is very clear because local governments, they also, and local regional governments, they took upon them the responsibility of tracking how they are implementing the SDGs, and the number of voluntary local reviews is a good example of this. And finally, number 4, I would say what we have learned through this process is that creating this process, nurturing those spaces, and helps to establish new partnerships, to strengthen collaboration. And is it through this collaboration that we bring those international development frameworks like the 2030 Agenda, they can become tangible realities at the local level. And just I will be concluding now. It has been a very profound learning experience personally. I really appreciate the sense of urgency that comes from local and regional governments that push us to do more, to do better, to do differently. And also this need, it's a combination of a sense of urgency, but also the need of being very, very so much, and you know you need to be there and help and be able to change. And yeah, finally I would say, as Charity was calling this morning, it is also about joy, right? So it is a great partnership. So we share a lot. It's also great when you reach that point in a partnership where you can laugh together, and also you can fight the pessimism. I think the ambassador from Canada mentioned this morning, how this is something I think all of us that are here, that are interested in partnerships, we need to work more towards that. It is possible, although you know the situation outside might be so hard and challenging. So thank you so very much again, and back to you.
Thank you very much, Nayara, and totally agree that the local and regional governments forum is not only a space for speeches, but it's a process that we have been able to institutionalize, having in mind that this is a space where the first voluntary local reviews were presented, where the first voluntary subnational reviews were presented, and this has started build a momentum, a political momentum of a different way of talking about the 2030 agenda. And it is indeed the urgency and the need to guarantee that these voices of hope are not only advocates behind the balcony of the UN, but a formal, structural, and different type of relationship is what we are seeking for on this. You were quoting the joy that was brought into this conversation by the youth representative, and it is very meaningful for UCLG to be partnering with the United Nations Major Group of Children and Youth for this event, but as well through our different negotiations. And I would like to flag the migration file, which we partner, and cities and youth go together to these negotiations. So we would like to welcome Billy Anders, who is a Haitian activist from Media XYZ of the Caribbean, and as well a representative for the Children and Youth Major Group. Billy, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I would like to thank you for the opportunities to be part in this important conversation.
Thank you.
Honorable guests, distinguished participants. My name is Billy Anders Estime, and I'm from Haiti. I stand before you today on behalf of the Major Group for Children and Youth, as we discuss the vital connection between local and regional governments and high-impact partnerships. Over the years, we have witnessed the power of collaboration and multi-stakeholder coalition in bringing about positive change. Through this partnership, we have learned what is possible when we work together towards a common goal. They remind us that by joining forces and sharing resources, we can tackle even the most pressing challenges, such as poverty eradication and human rights protection during crisis. These coalitions have provided us with effective strategies and innovative approaches that can guide our action moving forward. One aspect that cannot be overlooked is the meaningful participation of youth in this initiative. We are not only beneficiaries of the SDGs, but also change makers. We must be equipped and empowered to take an active role in shaping our future. This means providing us with the necessary resources, tools, and financial support to implement our ideas and make a meaningful impact. Allow me please to turn your attention to the specific context of Haiti. My country is currently facing multiple crises, and establishing partnership with young nations is more urgent than ever. The youth of Haiti are resilient, creative, and full of potential. By partnering with them through projects focusing on education, vocational training, and community engagement, we can empower them with practical skills and foster entrepreneurship and employment opportunities that can help them find their ways, overcome the challenges they face, and contribute to the development and well-being of their communities. So please, I'm cheering you to reach out to them and offer them the support they need. One critical challenge we are facing today is a lack of mutual trust between young people and local governments. Conversations and consultation with our network of hundreds of young migrants around the world have highlighted this as a key barrier to creating more equitable, inclusive policies and programs. It is with repeated evidence and examples of youth having a seat at the table that this trust is built. We have seen great examples of local and regional governments creating formal spaces for youth engagement through youth councils or advisory boards. In cities from Boston, USA to Mechelen, Belgium, local governments are making intentional efforts to engage youth, but also to ensure this engagement is diverse and accurately reflects the young population of the cities, including young migrants in situations of precarity, who are often the most difficult to reach. Recently, NYCP, in partnership with UCLG and the Mayor's Mechanism, launched the call to local action for migrants and refugees, with a special focus on youth. In this call, there are several examples of practices and pledges by the city's practitioners and policymakers of how to involve youth in the decision-making process and multi-stakeholders engagement at the local level. Finally, I want to emphasize the urgency of this moment. Any one entity alone can tackle the challenges we face today. We need partnerships that bring local and regional governments, youth, civil society organizations, and UN agencies. Through collaboration, innovation, and inclusivity, we can ensure that no one is left behind and create a more equitable and sustainable world where the needs of the present are met without compromising the needs of the future generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Billy. This is all well taken. And you were referring to inequality and a new generation of human rights and linked with the coalitions. I would like to highlight the different coalitions that we presented that will be relevant to start discussing where we can land and where we can bring the youth conversation. One is the Global Alliance of Care as a result of the Generation Equality Forum, which local and regional governments are very active, but as well the youth, and this is also a place where we can do this. We have the Global Observatory of Proximities building around the idea of 15-minute cities, where infrastructure for the youth is crucial in terms of urban planning. We have as well the Cities Alliance, which is building to eradicate poverty, specifically with slums, where the grassroots movement has a special and dedicated space, but we have to bring about as well youth. So this is kind of the ideas where we can build on the coalitions and the spaces that we can already offer from a global level. Then we will have our mayors doing and walking the talk at the local level. So thank you so much, Billy, for this. And finally, before yielding the floor to Massimo to start the conversation on the open debate, I would like to welcome Sandra I say very well your name, Sandra, and we talk every week, but she's the head of advocacy of the ICPD 30 Secretariat, and with whom we are partnering, as I said, for this global dialogue to review the 30 years of the conference. So Sandra, welcome. Thank you for UNFPA for partnering with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. So for us, a conversation on partnership for localization to rescue the SDGs is particularly important this year because we're reviewing 30 years of implementation of the Program of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development. It's a mouthful, so that's the ICPD. And it's one of the examples of the power of partnership. That 179 governments came together and set forth a vision for population and development that centers individual dignity, and that amplified the crucial role of women and girls in population and development, and that thereafter working in partnership with parliaments, with civil society, with young people, with a wide range of actors at the grassroots level, that government has been able to steer some remarkable progress. However, while as an organization and as a world we have seen significant milestones, and we've witnessed quite a bit of progress working with countries to advance the ICPD agenda, so by supporting censuses, by using data to, encouraging the use of data to develop national development strategy, by promoting reproductive health and rights programs and policies, and just by supporting work that advances the rights and the empowerment of women and girls. We know that the world has not seen enough progress. We know that there is still a lot that has to be done. We have persistent challenges in achieving universal access to reproductive health and rights. That we have new challenges in climate change, challenges around conflict and displacement. We're still recovering from and dealing with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and adapting to that. And maternal mortality rates remain quite high in many parts of the world. Access to planned family planning services are still limited for many women. The shifting population dynamics are not what was planned for in 1995. So for us, this year and the ICPD that you review is another opportunity for us to reflect together as different actors and to reaffirm our commitment to that 30-year-old vision and to centering individual rights, to centering individual dignity in sustainable development, and to reaffirming the conviction that by centering individual rights and dignity we're able to achieve sustainable development. So as we look back over those 30 years, it's clear to us that local and regional governments are central to not only creating and enabling the partnerships that we need to rescue the SDGs, but they are central to helping us accelerate progress at local level and helping us bring the vision of the ICPD to life in a way that we ensure that indeed nobody is left behind. For the ICPD review, we invite you to join the process because it aims to bring together a wide range of actors to reinvigorate the agenda. So we would like to engage ministers, parliamentarians, thought leaders, young people, civil society organizations, grassroots groups, so all business, people in business, the private sector, community leaders, so just to bring together all actors, recognizing the importance of including and engaging young people who are that are current and future leaders and who are laying the ground for our vision for the future. And our hope is that our partnership with local and regional governments through CLG will be a mechanism for us to move closer to localizing the ICPD and to access the key levels and the policy makers, the mayors and local governments that we need to invite to our tent of allies and bring the vision of the ICPD for an equitable, inclusive, and sustainable future to life.
Thank you very much, Sandra. We can guarantee how open the ICPD 30 is to all different type of stakeholders. And we have to say that this was a very historical and meaningful moment for our leadership of women mayors to sign this MOU because the UNFPA agenda is so related to our constituency in terms of population and territories, internally cities, migration and displacement, and that we never found a way of partnering, and it was last year that we signed, and it's been very, very relevant for us. So thank you very much, Sandra. So colleagues, we will now go to the open debate. We have some already colleagues who know we will speak. We will try to give a bit of an open floor after they speak, but just to let you know that we have both local and regional governments and as well partners, and we will try to have a discussion between them. So I will let you know who is in the room, and then Massimo will brief you on our plans for the Summit of the Future. But we have two strong regional governments, which is the Basque Country and Catalonia, both represented here. We have the cities of New York and Hoboken. And then we have partners who are building with us processes this year and that they are relevant for us. We have the C4UN, the Alliance for the UN, we need represented by the Baha'i International Community. We have the General Assembly of Partners, specifically here on the Older Persons Partner Constituent Group, represented by Catherine Klein. We have peace in our cities, with whom we are building the SDG 16 localization report for this year, and later we will be joined by UN Habitat. So this is what we will try to exchange and try to answer how to partner for the future and specifically the summit of the future and beyond, because do have in mind that we have the World Social Summit in 2025. That's where we are trying to land our efforts. So Massimo, if you can brief us briefly on our plans for the summit of the future.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just while Massimo, you know him, Massimo Carrino, he coordinates the global task force of local and regional governments.
Thank you very much, Pablo, and hello everyone. It's really great to be here and to see so many familiar faces. So yeah, just to briefly give some points, maybe some food for thought to take into account as we take on this open debate. The first one is that, well, I mean, for the Global Task Force of Local and Regional Governments and our constituency, the Economic and Social Council Partnership Forum is really an important platform for us because it gives us the opportunity not only to give input into ECOSOC's work, but also to the HLPF, as they both share the same theme, but also because it gives us this opportunity to co-create policy as local and regional governments with other stakeholders. And Pablo was mentioning some of those of you who are in the room, and not only stakeholders and non-state actors, but also national governments. So taking that into account, we're really taking that logic into 2024 because as we all know, this is the year of the Summit of the Future, where the idea is to conceive a new type of multilateralism, one that is more networked, one that is more inclusive. So of course, I mean, we heard from the Mayor of Mount Vernon today that one of our strong ambitions as a constituency is to have a permanent seat at the decision-making table for local and regional governments. And to work on that, well, we have different mechanisms, some formal, some informal, and well, you'll be seeing us within all of the international policy processes. Just to mention some key milestones for us this year, of course, we have the HLPF, which is reviewing SDG 1 on no poverty. We'll be speaking about that later, zero hunger, climate action, and peace. But we also have the ICPD review, which we were just listening about. COP, but then also other more thematic forums like related to water. And one thing that we should try and think about is how can we come together as partners, so local and regional governments, but also stakeholders within these processes to try and work towards that idea of network multilateralism that we want to have in 2024. So I'll leave it at that and looking forward to the debate. Back to you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Massimo. And well, we will open the floor. Have in mind this, have in mind the SDGs that we will be reviewing. And I will start with a local and regional government. Of course, we always use the listen to cities, but of course, when we say this, we are saying as well listen to regions and listen to the first subnational government that we have. So I'm yielding now the floor to Mr. Unai Tellería. He's a delegate of the Basque Country to the United States. So, Mr. Tellería, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pablo. Esteemed colleagues, distinguished participants, good afternoon, Arracha Leon. It is an honor to represent the Basque government, which currently holds the presidency of Regions 4 in this forum. We are navigating a particularly harsh cycle of global crises over the last 15 years, marked by a pandemic, wars, and humanitarian challenges. In the face of these adversities, the Basque government recognizes the vital role of local and regional governments and the power of partnerships in advancing the 2030 agenda. Our approach combines global and local actions. Internationally, we advocate for promoting societies that are just, peaceful, and inclusive, in line with SDG 16. And we actively participate in the global call against war, terrorism, and violence. Locally, our focus is on improving our reality in Euskadi, engaging all Basque institutions and society in embracing the Sustainable Development Goals. Our commitment to the 2030 Agenda is evidenced in our actions and initiatives, showcasing a comprehensive localization model developed by the Basque government. Last year, we published our 6th monitoring report, demonstrating our ongoing commitment to transparency and progress. In 2021, we launched the BAS Priorities Program for the 2030 Agenda, a strategic action plan that underscores our dedication to social cohesion, peace, justice, and sustainability. This program is a key part of our localization model, reflecting our proactive approach to integrating the SDGs into our public policies and initiatives. Additionally, the Basque Country 2030 Agenda Forum, also established in 2021, serves as a collaborative platform for government, academia, civil society, and the private sector, emphasizing our methodology of concrete and collaborative governance. This forum, along with the Basque Alliance for the SDGs, formed last year and uniting 80 entities, are key components of our comprehensive approach. These initiatives are part of the basic infrastructures we have established to support our commitment to SDG 17 and embody our society-focused proposal where we view the SDGs as a new social contract with our citizens. As our president, Delena Kari, emphasized at the 5th plenary of the Basque Country 2030 Agenda Forum held in October, we are guided by the principles of solidarity and sustainability. These values demand not only global humanitarian responses, but also local transformative actions across social, economic, and ecological dimensions. Our efforts are grounded in coherence, ensuring that our global aspirations are reflected in our local contributions and personal commitment. Hosting the Global Secretariat of the Local 2030 Coalition is a recognition of our journey, but also a responsibility. We are eager to share our experiences and learn from our global partners. Let us unite in our efforts as we advance into the second half of the 2030 Agenda, creating a more sustainable and equitable future for all. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this vital dialogue. Eskerrik asko.
Thank you very much, Anay, and thank you for keeping up the time. As you said, you're here as well representing Region 4, which is one of the networks of the Global Task Force. And you are also the host of Local 2030, which was referenced in a very bold speech by the representative of Spain today in the plenary of the Partnerships Forum. The Local 2030, as you know, is the coalition of the United Nations for the local implementation of the 2030 Agenda, which involves not only local and regional governments, but other stakeholders. And I think we need to celebrate this, and we need to keep the momentum of the initiative. Thank you very much, Unai. I will now go to the General Assembly of Partners, Older Persons Partner Constituent Group, Catherine Klein. As you know, the General Assembly of Partners is one of the strong advocates within the UN Habitat constituency, but as well in the New York discussions, with whom the local authorities major group has partnered for years to advocate for the urban and territorial dimension. But we have managed to build a partnership alongside UN Habitat within the UN, but as well in the UCLG ecosystem. So Catherine Klein, it's an honor to have you here. The floor is yours.
Thank you very, very much, and thank you for honoring the promise that I not go last and be left behind, which has happened. And I will explain a little bit, very briefly. The General Assembly of Partners was initiated with different constituency groups, all independent and representing their own constituency cohorts, in honor of the Habitat 3 that took place in Quito, Ecuador. And we wanted to have an impact on that outcome document, which we did individually and collectively. And as Pablo mentioned, I've been the co-chair for the General Assembly of Partners Older Person Partner Constituency Group, quite a mouthful too. And what that has meant is basically I use my volunteer time, my past as a diplomat, my activist as a 60s civil rights person, and my ability in New York City to be near the UN to try and make a difference. So just first a few statistics, because I think quite frankly older persons are always overlooked, and I think it's to your credit that as a younger person you will achieve that august position of being an older, wise person, as long as you stay healthy. So, some statistics. In 2020, the number of people 60 and older, which is how the UN describes us, outnumbered children under 5. Between 2015 and 2050, the portion of the world's population over 60 will double from what it is 12% to 22%. And this is what's not usually acknowledged. Expected to number 2.1 billion, with 80% living in low and middle income countries. So with that in mind, I wanted to present, because I thought we were here as partners, some ideas instead of just giving you statistics and complaints, which I can do, but I won't. So what is one valuable initiative that local authorities organization, age-friendly communities? So what is an age-friendly community? Well, here in New York City, we were the first to be accredited. It means there are benches in pharmacies, so you don't have to stand around waiting. There are benches in parks, there's better lighting, there's better safety, there are better sidewalks, all of which mean age-friendly for all ages. But what it takes is concentrating first on getting some of your constituents, your older folks, maybe in senior citizens, maybe talking to your departments who deal with issues of aging. Who are some of the groups that are most active in their communities? And getting them to walk around the community and say, hey, what works and where are the gaps? What's missing? And from that dialogue with the local authorities, because it requires with the World Health Accreditation to have an official letter from the mayor endorsing this endeavor and this process. And I can tell you, mayors who gulp at the thought of yet a new initiative, that the World Health Organization has plenty of step-by-step guides, have plenty of mentoring, have plenty of resources, and I have been a passionate advocate of it since 2007 when it was started. So that's one. And as an example, I'll give you 2 quick examples of what this means on the ground, because that's what we're really talking about. How does it impact people? Well, in Martorell, Spain, they created something called the Community Social Work Project, which was incorporated into the municipal plan for older people. And that's what's essential. That's what you were saying. You have to integrate it into the actual governance structure, or the change of administration wipes out all the progress you've made. So it's incorporated into it. And a network of contact points with commercial shops, pharmacies, optical clinics, Center for Older People, and other relevant associations offering support was created. And again, that helps the caregivers, younger and older, and the people for whom they serve. Second example for this one is County Clare, Ireland. And what they created was something called a walkability study, what I mentioned earlier. Just walk around your neighborhood, find out what the pitfalls are. The second example, and then I would end with this, is something you may not have talked about, but I heard a panel just a week or 2 ago talking about tourism for the mature traveler. I had never heard that term. I'm 78. I've traveled to over 100 and something countries. I never knew I was a mature traveler. But guess what? We are the biggest growing cohort of travelers, women over 60. And yet the field is populated with young folks, young staff, who haven't a clue, and it's not their fault they haven't been trained, but they haven't a clue what are the interests of older persons, what are the particular needs. And again, I would just emphasize that when you want to take a rest, it's honestly not just for the older person who actually may be more physically able than the 25-year-old who had a ski accident and is recovering. Who knows? But all I'm saying is it's not just for older people. And so it's training staff, offering appropriate trips. I'm going on one actually to Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia in May with a group called Overseas Adventure Travel. And it's dedicated to this cohort because they know that people like me take 10 and 11 trips with them because they know what we need. They really work hard to get our support. The mention of Singapore and Thailand was that this is really doing a good job to encourage jobs for younger people, but they've got to be trained because guess what? The younger people are busy with their careers and everything else, and it's we older people who have the resources to travel. So I'll end with that. Please, the only other request is, guess what? There's a convention, a treaty for every single group you can imagine, except for guess who? Those of us who are older and those of you who will become older. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And this has to do with what we are advocating for the commons and ages as a common, related as well to the right to the city. And there's no way of talking about the future if we don't consider this population very related to the ICPD 30 that we will be discussing during the HLPF. Thank you very much, Catherine Klein. I will go now to New York City. We are in New York. I am very happy to introduce you to Christy Sanville. She is the Director of Strategic Relations of the New York City's Mayor Office for International Affairs. Strong partner of UCLG. Christy, welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Pablo. So I just wanted to say on behalf of the Mayor's Office for International Affairs, as well as the City of New York, we really want to thank our friends at UCLG, the Global Task Force, and Local Authorities Major Group for inviting us to be part of such an important and critical conversation. As it was mentioned, my name is Christy Saintville, and I am the Director for Strategic Relationships here at the Mayor's Office for International Affairs. And in our office, we really play a crucial role in providing a global platform for the city to champion its vision for a more equitable and inclusive society. And so we do this by actively cultivating partnerships such as UCLG with the international community, and we also proudly host the largest diplomatic corps in the world, and we serve as the home of the United Nations. We do that proudly. So as host city to the United Nations, it is important for us to stay connected to set the stage for cities and institutions to connect on critical issues such as gender, climate, youth, poverty, all of which make up for basic human rights. And in my role, I also lead the youth portfolio, and I lead the New York City Junior Ambassadors Program, and it is a fantastic initiative that turns young minds into global citizens. We dive into the Sustainable Development Goals, and we use that as a framework in our curriculum, and we bring that within the classrooms throughout New York City. So each classroom chooses an SDG, and they interact in a deep way with the United Nations. And we work with our educators to craft lesson plans that not only educate kids about the issue, but also inspire them to take everyday actions to make our city and the world a better place while still having access to the UN and the diplomatic community. We're committed to tackling issues with education and creating programs like the Junior Ambassadors to help schools join the movement in addressing the unique ways things like food insecurity, homelessness, and poverty manifest throughout the city. This program is a platform to help young people and educators learn more about these issues and take action beyond the classroom. It's all about empowering our youth to be change makers from an early age. And so the Adams administration knows what we need to do, what we do locally affects the world globally. And as such, we need to take the Sustainable Development Goals very seriously. We are a global city, so this means that we are breaking down barriers to create a city where everyone can thrive. We have some examples. So, for example, we have the New York City Commission on Human Rights, which is an agency that enforces human rights law within the city. It's divided into two bureaus, but I want to focus on one of the bureaus, which is community relations, and it educates the public and promotes community understanding, doing this in different ways, such as restorative justice principles to address discrimination and harm. And we have a comprehensive human rights law that prohibits discrimination in employment, in housing, and public accommodations based on various factors, including race, gender, age, and more. The law covers additional areas like discrimination and retaliation, harassment, housing, and bias-based profiling by law enforcement. Equal housing opportunities that we also focus on are pivotal to eradicating poverty. The fair housing work of the Commission is more important than ever because some landlords are taking advantage, especially now during our migrant crisis, and discriminating against tenants based on their status, race, or religion. The Commission is committed to fighting back. They're working with housing providers, tenant organizers, and communities to stop these unfair practices, and they're educating tenants, providing resources, and together we're providing with housing providers and community groups to ensure that all New Yorkers, no matter what the background, know their rights under the city human rights law. Inside another agency called the New York City Opportunity and Poverty Research Team, we analyze data to determine who's facing poverty, why it's happening, and how impactful our city programs are. It's a powerful tool that not only helps the people, but it also helps keeping the city accountable to make sure that we are delivering the goods and services that folks need. Last year, the city built over 26,000 affordable homes for New Yorkers, which provided relief for many low-income residents who may need assistance. And we work closely with the Housing Authority to find different partners to streamline access to an array of services and opportunities to ensure that we are meeting the tenants beyond basic needs. And so for us to do that, we are committed to helping the tenants and providing several opportunities to bring visibility of tenant boards so that they can have that seat at the table and they can continue to amplify ways that tenants can be directly part of the conversations on decisions that impact them. To further reduce barriers, we're also providing a plethora of translation and language services to help residents understand.
Ms. Joel, skip 30 seconds.
30 seconds, okay. Let me skip down, I had a whole gender thing, but, I just want to, as I close, just want to make sure that the message is clear. Local and regional governments like New York City, we need to be at the forefront of these conversations because we're committed to reversing the trends that got us here in the first place. We can't do this alone. There's a world that exists with the deep power of collaboration and partnership between cities, governments, and civil society that can be used as a vehicle for systemic change. And in order for us to have this happen, we need to break the silos and provide transparency internally and externally. It's really important for us to walk that walk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I invite you all to network and to exchange, to learn from each other after the session, because I'm sure that many of the initiatives that you were presenting are worth hearing from our colleagues. You mentioned, I want to flag the junior ambassadors as one of the practices and the food insecurity that you have. Let us have in mind that this year Brazil is chairing the G20 and zero hunger will be one of the priorities. And from UCLG together with C40, we are facilitating the Urban 20, where we will bring a declaration of cities against hunger during the HLPF because SDG 2 will be reviewed. Having said this, I will go now to Catalonia, the home of UCLG, Mr. Isidro Sala, the representative of the delegation of the government of Catalonia to the United States of America and Canada. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Pablo. On behalf of the government of Catalonia, I'd like to thank you to the local task force, first of all, UCLG, also Regions Forum, of course, UNDSA, the major group, everyone that made possible this meeting today. Catalonia, as an early embracer of the 2030 agenda, has been advocated from the very beginning for a more inclusive multilateralism. More inclusive multilateralism has to include all actors that actually play a role in the implementation of the 2030 agenda. And when this role is simply essential, Mayara says 65%, it speaks by itself. We completely agree with Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez, the concern that halfway of the deadline for the 2030 agenda, we are leaving more than the half of the world behind. We are stalled or going to reverse on more than 30% of the SDGs. So we really celebrate the approach on our common agenda, only calling for an inclusive network and effective multilateralism, and to get the world back on track by turbocharging the SDGs, we can have a chance. Again, and otherwise paraphrasing also the Secretary General, the 2030 agenda will become an epitaph for a world that might have seen. So Catalonia, together with the partners of the coalitions we share, we will continue working to improve the SDGs, and not only the SDGs, but also the hopes, the dreams, the rights, and the expectations they will receive. The Parliament of Catalonia, already in 2018, urged the government to promote an alliance of public and private actors that could contribute systemically to the localization of the SDGs in Catalonia through specific commitments. The Catalan National Agreement for the 2030 Agenda propose a shared vision and define the role and commitment that must be acquired by the different social agents in Catalonia, including public sector, business, trade unions, universities, civil societies, and citizenships. To create a future that leaves no one behind and makes Catalonia and the world a better place in 2030. Soon after this national plan was approved, the Catalonia 2030 Alliance was launched, an alliance open to any organization that wants to join the efforts to implement the 2030 agenda, both at Catalan and at global scale. In Catalonia 2030 Alliance, there's no ambitions without aligned commitments. Allow me to say, no SDGs washing will be tolerated. Strict requirements on terms of management, planning, communication, funding, democratic governance, or accountability were established. The Alliance has so far more than 80 members, growing, and a large number of them are second-tier organizations that at the same time they bring together hundreds of other organizations. Last July 2023, the Alliance made public the 10 priority challenges for the sustainable development of Catalonia and urged everyone to work together to coordinate more effectively social benefits, especially the minimum legal income and the guaranteed income of citizenship, address the establishment of a decent minimum wage to combat working poverty, setting at least 60% of the average wage, grant access to housing, promote comprehensive 360 degrees education, both at the school and also outside the school, and allow universal access to healthy lifestyle for everyone. We are therefore already working in our common agenda, and we built this alliance in Catalonia, but we were also fully engaged with these like-minded coalitions that perform an extraordinary job and multiply the effects, the results. For example, we are sharing these lessons learned together with our partners from Euskadi, for example, with the Spanish Union 2030, the Aircraft Initiative with the in Fallen Islands, the Lombardy Protocol for Sustainable Development, or the Yucatan 2040 agenda, to speed up this learning process. So you can always count on us. As we say in Vision 4, we are ready to rescue the SDGs. And we make a call today here to work towards ensuring that this September Summit of the Future is really inclusive. And let us contribute to forge this new global consensus that the Secretary General was urging. We owe this to our generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. It's very relevant that you mention our common agenda to the broader mandate that the SG has, because it is not only about the Summit of the Future in September, and we have to be following what will happen in September because we need to build on this. And this is why I want Dan Perel to close the session. Not now that you will be the last one. You will have Catherine Klein's. No, because I want you to talk about the summit, the People's Pact for the Future, and your plans for September to close the session. But having in mind, I will go first with Hoboken and then Peace in Our Cities. But just to have in mind that we will be looking forward to Dan's intervention in what we can do all together. Allow me now to go to Hoboken, who is here representing another network from the Global Task Force, which is ECLE, Local Governments for Sustainability. Mr. Caleb Stratton, he is the Chief Resilience Officer of the city. So the floor is yours. You have 4 minutes. And please have in mind, we started 10 minutes late, so we will be ending by time 10 minutes later. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I think I can do less than 4 minutes.
Okay, no worries.
Hoboken's a very small community. So what I'd like to do is reframe this and bring this back down to a little bit of a personal level when you hear everyone speak. I have 2 girls that are younger than 5 years old, and I have 2 parents that are older than 6. So sustainable development goals, what I've come to learn in my position as Chief Resilience Officer, have a direct impact on quality of life. As Chief Resilience Officer, I have the responsibility of identifying shocks and stresses within our community that ultimately erode the ability to persist into the future. Hoboken's had some difficult lessons to learn. 2011 Hurricane Irene, 2012 Hurricane Sandy, kind of at the forefront of what's occurring in the climate change space. And over the last decade, we've adapted the community to be able to deal with more than 90% of rain events and reduce the impacts in our coastal footprint by more than 80%. And that's been done through interventions related to infrastructure and interventions that leverage the collective goodwill of our community. And we've done that by engaging, and I just want to highlight that you can really get a lot done if you leverage comment, points of dissatisfaction, not trying to figure out what we're all excited to do, but what everyone's kind of upset about in terms of the status quo, which is usually the incumbent against any emerging idea. So I guess I gave them remarks last week, and what I'll leave with this group is, and this is, I'm regurgitating someone else's good comments. Desmond Tutu once said, "How do you eat an elephant? Do it one bite at a time." So I did a little math, and at 4 pounds a day, you could eat an elephant in about 8 years. In 16 years, or 2 elephants, Hoboken will have achieved 2028 its goals in sustainable development, which is flood risk related, net zero related. Last month we implemented the Department of Climate Action and Innovation because we have to put our assets and best people in front of our most complex and intractable issues. So I hope that I can provide optimism and potentially some strategies to this group, and I want to thank you again for the opportunity to speak.
Great.
Thank you very much, Caleb. And I want to flag in terms of the complexity that you were referring, the initiative that we have on complex emergencies, which is, of course, we're in an emergency, but we need to plan, and we need to plan in a calm way, which is not in this case. Thank you so much. I will finish with the speakers list, and if we have time, I will give you the floor. Thank you very much. SDG 16 will be reviewed during this year's HLPF. We are in very challenging times. We are partnering with Peace in Our Cities, and we're very happy to have Boyan Francus here with us. The floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Pablo. It's great to be after Hoboken and after that inspiring message. I know you've done great work, particularly also on safety of pedestrians and traffic safety. There's been a lot of work that you've been getting. Hopefully you can chat about that as well. So it is a small city in the shadow of a very large city where you have a progressive mayor doing amazing things. So something to look forward to. And look up to. You were sharing good news. I do want to make a short remark, and my remark share a warning. I think when we talk about rescuing SDGs and making progress for the next 6-7 years that we have left, I think there's also always that incentive to cut corners in making that progress. And particularly here when we think about the issues that I've worked on, the issues of violence and reducing more serious forms of violence in our cities and in our communities, one can make very quick progress in making communities safe and improving those statistics by relying on wrong approaches to make that happen. When I say wrong approaches, I think of mano dura, strong hand policies that we see are quite popular in different parts of Latin and Central America, but are also being exported to different parts of the world. And this is where my warning comes in. As we think about making progress on SDG 16, on the issues of peace, but also more broadly, we must think about protecting and promoting human rights. And I know this is preaching to the audience of the converted sitting here in the United Nations, but it is something that we should be reminding ourselves on a daily basis. Are the interventions, are the policy solutions, are the programs that we're putting in place on issues of violence, but also on other issues, are they just? Are they equitable? I should note that, again, going back to the field of violence prevention reductions, there are local and regional governments that are pushing back against this dominant narrative of let's rely on technology and strong hand policies to solve to make our communities peaceful. there are those bright spots, again, also in Latin America, in Africa, and across other parts of the world. And this is where we come into place. Peace in Our Cities is a network of 24 cities and 40 partners around the world who have come together and said, we commit to reducing all forms of urban violence in our cities by 50% by year 2030 as our contribution to the 2030 agenda. We as a network are there to document best practices, to share knowledge and resources, to connect them with each other, but also to help them in shaping the narratives in their communities. Because when you have local leaders, they say, well, you need to help me create political space so I can implement some of these solutions that take time to showcase results. Because those Mamadura approaches, they're easy and they do show some good results, but they come at a very, very high cost. So let me end on the point to say how important partnerships are. Partnerships in a network, with a network, partnership with universities, partnership with community-based organizations, partnerships with larger advocacy bodies like UCLG and many others. And I hope that we're going to be leaning more into that as we go over the next coming years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Brian. And of course, human rights is one of our key priorities. And let us have in mind the dedicated sessions and briefings that we have to have with UN special rapporteurs on different thematics on human rights, which are key players for these partnerships. And to close this open debate, we are very honored to have the Coalition for the UN We Need strong advocates, and they have plans actually for September, and that we need to partner, we need to listen from them, and we need to bring local and regional government voices as well to your conversation. So, Dan Perel, thank you very much for coming, and the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the opportunity to share a few thoughts. I didn't prepare remarks as much as my colleagues did, so forgive me for perhaps speaking a little bit off the cuff, but I wanted to have a minute to reflect on what I've heard thus far today. First, I should start by saying I also have 2 daughters, but if my daughters heard that we were discussing eating elephants, they would be so mad at me. So please don't let that out of this room. But you know, there's this Summit of the Future happening in September, and I think, you know, in light of the conversations we've had, I want to just offer a few maybe conceptual ideas before jumping down into the practical dimensions of it. Firstly, you know, there is a lot of trepidation about this summit, whether or not we should be having it, and, you know, what is in all these crises, and, you know, what are we thinking opening up multilateralism to a broader conversation at this moment in history. And I think it's not easy to, it's not hard to respond to that, because when things are going well, that's when you don't need to reform them. It's when things are struggling that you do. I mean, both the League of Nations and the United Nations itself are born of horrible crises that we hope never to repeat. But we are entering a time of great turmoil, and my aspiration is that we can make the changes necessary this time before we go through such a tragic experience. So we all see the writing on the wall. I mean, one of the few points of consensus among the member states is that the system we have is tremendously imperfect. So let's start from there, as was said earlier. Let's start from that point of agreement about the challenge we're facing. Second thing I wanted to share is that what we often have the tendency to do is take the UN as it is and try and build on it, try to modify it to see how far we can get. But I wonder if we flip that a little bit and say, well, what are the needs that humanity has now? And then take that as our goal and see how we can, you know, right the ship of the United Nations in that direction. It's a little bit of a different approach, but it allows us to set our vision a little bit higher. You know, in that light, one of the challenges that I think perhaps is taboo for me to mention here, but don't tell my colleagues, you know, one of the big challenges that the international community is facing is that of the appropriate measure of state sovereignty. I mean, that's kind of the primary language in which the UN speaks. It is how you become a member of the UN, and if you strip that away at all, then you are, you know, infringing on that most holy of principles. And I think that there's a degree of validity to state sovereignty. I mean, it is vital. I mean, we can't get rid of it, but we have to understand the right degree of it. Like, where do we turn it on the dial? And I think if it's turned up a little bit too far, then what happens is that both the international community, but also local and regional governments, are constrained in their capacity to act. And I think we have to really think about it, not just because we want to strengthen the UN, I don't know that that's actually the thing we want to do. I think the thing we want to do is answer the question about how to organize society. And all of societies are organized first at the local level. So maybe if we actually can find where on that dial we want state sovereignty to be, we can actually turn up the dial on local autonomy, which here I think is a really interesting question to be because everything that we do happens locally. I mean, my children go to school in my community. Their values will be shaped in that local region. I mean, all of it is local. And if we are thinking purely about the international and even the state level, then what we lose is that dimension of humanity. And I think here, when we have these conversations with individuals and ambassadors and member state delegates and UN staff, at an individual level, they agree time and time again. And then they get behind the microphone and they're constrained by their institutional structure. And I wonder, how can we bring that humanity into this space? So I wasn't asked here to preach, but I do think it's important for us to keep all of these ideas in our mind as we are conceiving of the Summit of the Future. What is it that humanity and future generations would ask of us at this time in history? Where are those values born? And then from that, what is it that we can be learning from, local innovation, local experience that can perhaps be expanded, but perhaps just shared with other local spaces? I mean, I think there's such benefit to that. So the Summit of the Future happening in September, as I think you're all aware, and if not surprised, there's going to be an outcome document. Perhaps it'll be agreed by consensus. Fingers crossed, everybody get ready for late nights. But it will be a pact for the future that is meant to be sort of a commitment to future generations. There's a declaration on future generations. I think that this is all a track that's going to be happening. It's intergovernmentally negotiated. One question that I've been thinking about is if the Universal Declaration on Human Rights was an intergovernmentally negotiated document, what would it have said?
Nothing.
Well, the role of civil society, the role of human beings in creating sort of a parallel process to say, yeah, we know you're going to do your intergovernmental thing. That's great. Do it as best you can. But we want to use this opportunity to say a few more things, perhaps be a little bit more visionary, more expansive. And it's not, again, to impugn the individuals who are engaged in this process. This is the institution we have. We do the best we can with it. I don't want it to sound like I'm down on the UN. Far from it. It's about seeing the UN as having a specific purpose and track, and then we, as those outside, also have a specific purpose and track. So we're trying to put together what we call a People's Pact to run parallel to this Pact for the Future. We are opening it up for contributions. My email address I can share. That's very easy. And then we have this conference in Nairobi, civil society conference taking place in Nairobi in May, where we're hoping to gather more perspectives, more opinions. And it's not to say that civil society thinks this one thing. And one thing I loved about UCLG's contribution about the future we need, forgive me, I can't remember the exact name of it. It was very similar to what the Secretary General ultimately put forward. I think it's great. Let's have 1,000 flowers blooming. Let's see which ones are growing. Let's learn from them and then create a People's Pact, create a Local Authorities Pact, create a Children and Youth Pact. Let's get all of this out there, because without all of these ideas, we can confine ourselves to the system that I don't think we owe to our progeny. We can create something, with a bit more of an adventurous attitude, create something a little bit more necessary for the moment in which we live. And that's sort of my plea, is to not be constrained, but to use that imagination and to build on each other's expertise, to share learning liberally, so that we can use this summit as an opportunity to advance more ideas in future spaces and generate more partnerships. So thanks for the opportunity, and sorry for...
No, always
Amazing.
good, always good.
Thank you very much, Dan. And local and regional government's contribution was adopted 1 year ago in Daejeon in Korea, and it's called the Pact for the Future of Humanity. And I want to recall how this pact starts, because it is recalling when the municipal movement was founded in 1913. The name of the conference in Ghent back then, and this is before the wars, was called in a similar way of the purpose that you are referring, which is the art of building cities and organizing community life. And this is what local and regional governments try to do. It's not saving the UN, but it's saving humanity. So we totally agree on what you were saying. I will ask Mayor Howards to close this session and let us, well, we all know each other, let us keep networking today and to start exchanging. Mayor Howards, the floor is yours to close the session.
Thank you so much. First, I want to thank Pablo and Maximo for convening us today. I had the great opportunity of meeting them back in November, and while that was a short while ago, it feels like forever. But forever in a positive way, because of the amount, because of the things that I've learned and been exposed to. And once you're exposed to something, you can never go back. And so I was just asked to close us. So I want to say, as we look at the importance of local and regional governments and the partnership of civil society and business community and all sectors, and I'm just going to summarize some of what's been said, right? Because it's important that we carve and create and nurture spaces within the UN and within our communities to lift up the power of local work and in reaching our SDGs. And while our youth are facing multiple crises, they are resilient and hopeful and full of potential. And so we must ensure that they have a seat at the table, and oftentimes at the head of the table, that we have to create friendly communities for adults as they age in place and as they travel globally, and remember their needs and the level for which they are going to grow. I'm 55, quickly approaching 60, and so I look forward to that freedom and that transformative time in my life. And as a woman, understanding the importance of reproductive health rights and fighting against the disparate maternity and mortality rates that we see women of color and poor women experience. I am a woman who lost a child and almost died on a birthing table. And when a woman of color with a master's degree has a higher death, maternity, and mortality rate than a woman who is white living in West Virginia with no high school diploma, there's a problem. But that's not just a problem here in the United States, it's a problem globally. We have to continue to work to combat hunger because it is real and it is increasing. And not only is hunger increasing, but as we try and feed people, we have to ensure that we're giving them healthy foods, else we're having the unintended consequences of diabetes and high blood pressure and continuing health disparities. We have to make sure that we're preparing for migration and displacement, not just caused by climate, but also by conflict and by chaos that is sometimes just created for that very purpose. We have to ensure that our partnerships are committed to reversing the trends that got us here in the first place, that we break down those silos and we work together, and yes, that we identify those common points of dissatisfaction, because oftentimes we try and organize people on what we agree, and that leaves so many who want to have a voice away from the table. So if we start looking at where we disagree, and we can find agreement and we work out from there, then it's going to be incredible. And finally, as you just said, let's not confine ourselves to systems that haven't worked, but we transform and not conform to what we've seen and what we've been frustrated with. Thank you so much. Take this opportunity to network, to be great, to develop authentic relationships, because as we develop these authentic relationships beyond just the issues, but we get to know each other, because in one way or another we're going to spend a lot of time with each other as our paths cross in different places. Then the work will truly be transformative, and it will impact our children, ourselves, and our parents. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a blessed day.